Okay, Jeff and John, and we're going to get into right now how we draft teams, how we put teams together, and some of the criteria that we have to look at. Because, again, from district to district, John, not all teams are created equal. So I want you to go through and talk about the numbers of players on teams and where the cutoff lines are. Because before he does that, if you want to go to our website under Game Rules, section 2.3, it talks about team rosters and it talks about roster size. And this is really important because our goal is not only to have viable, close, competitive games, it's our rule that every kid gets 10 plays. So talk about the number of players versus the number of teams and the cutoff, and what a small roster is versus a big roster, and why it's important for us to have those.
Well, obviously, as Jeff talked about, at 32 kids, you have to split. So on a small district, you'll get from 1 to 27 kids. Well, obviously, you'll need more than one, but 11 to 27 to be able to play, which would equal one team.
We ought to put that in there because 11, because you can't play with one kid.
No, you can't play with one. And you probably want a couple extra, but 11 to 27 would be obviously one team district.
And we have had a couple teams go Ironman in the past.
Yeah.
It's really difficult because if one kid gets injured, we don't really like that.
Yeah, vacations, who knows what. But once you hit the 28 kid limit, now this isn't an age group. 28 kids, 28 to 42 would equal two teams. At that point, you'd want to try to make two teams. Once you go over 42, 43 to 60, you want to try to split those up into three.
So on that, 43, what is that per team? That's 13s and 14s.
Yeah, 13s.
It's still manageable, especially in the smaller age groups, mighty mites and below, 11 years old and below. Those are manageable numbers there.
Yeah, when you get up in the bigger ones, that gets a little bit harder. So, but obviously, what's the goal? Is the kids getting playing time.
That's the goal.
If you've got less kids, obviously they're getting a lot of playing time, and the kids are happier. You retain more kids. When you hit 61 kids, 61 to 80, we recommend splitting to 4 teams. And then if you've got this many kids, 81 to 100, 5 teams. And I think we might be seeing something over 100 this year.
In a couple of those big districts.
Which
now,
would give you 6.
We also have districts that their entire district, from 7 years old to 14, only have 100 kids.
Right.
And we're talking about districts now that have 81 to 100 players in one division. All 11-year-olds.
One division.
It's we have a couple districts that could be pushing that 500 mark this year.
Yeah, but ideally the goal behind this is to create manageable teams. The games are only so long. They get their plays, and you're not trying to worry about that.
One thing, so let's say we have 34 players. So my A team can take 20 players and only give the B team 14 players.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, what's correct?
Per rules, there's a 3-player differential. So if A team takes 20, then the B team would have to have at least 17 or 23.
17 or 23, because we don't want one team taking too many and leaving another team empty-handed. Ultimately, if you have 28 kids, you have 2 teams of 14. So a small roster would be 12 to 16 players.
Yep.
Medium, 17 to 21, and a large roster, 22 to 27. In all the years I coached, I only had a couple rosters at 22. And on those years, I had a starting offense and a starting defense so that everybody got their plays.
But you had 800 kids, right?
I had a lot. I had a lot back then. So, okay, how are we going to divide these out? So here, let's talk about the small districts now first, because that's relatively easy. Okay, you cannot split until you have at least 28 players in a division, and then that would equal 2 teams of 14 players. If you have 30 players, then you got 15. If you've got 31, then you've got a 15 and a 16. So you keep it even. But let's go to the next level. Let's go to 42 players or 43 players. Okay? 43 would be 14, 14, and 15. But you can see we've got we're within that 3-person differential. So that's how we're going to do it. So in these guidelines, we're going to say, all right, we want these A teams to compete and have an opportunity to compete at the highest level they can compete at. So we have 28 players. 28 players divided by 2 equals 14. The A team takes the best 14, and the B team takes the rest. Okay? This is in a small district scenario. Okay, so let's go now to a large district scenario because that's where this gets tricky. We want our A teams, they're the most competitive. They're the best.
They're going to get scheduled that way, too.
They're going to get scheduled that way as well. You're exactly right. So let's say we'll just use an easy round number of 60. Okay? This one's easy. We've only got 3 teams. So the A team will take the first 20.
Do you draft the next 2?
No.
No, we don't. That's right. Because why? What do we have?
Because we got a B1 team that's going to be potentially playing lower end, smaller end A teams. They get the next 20, and then the B team gets the final 20. There is no draft in this scenario.
And 2 coaches, if you're coaching here, you don't have to fret because you're going to be coaching against the teams that are in the same boat. They're doing the same thing.
Exactly. So now let's go to a different scenario here. Let's say we've got 60 kids and they want to do 4 teams out of it. So we've got 60 players, 4 teams equals 15. All right, so the A team will take 15. The B1 team, the next 15. Now that includes coaches' sons. Okay? And then we've got a B2 and B3. Now, there's no significance here. These teams need to be equal. So what we're going to allow this year is if you've had 4 teams in that division, we're going to allow them to freeze, including coaches' kids, up to 10 players each from the previous year's roster. So the question's going to come, okay, well, what if this B3 team is a new team? Well, B2 can take 10 players off his previous year roster, but B3 now can freeze 10 teams or 10 players to equalize.
So out of the 30, there'd be 20 left, and B3 gets the first 10, right?
The first 10 to equalize. And then from there, it's up to the district. They can either do a standard draft, 1, 2, 1, 2, or they can do a snake draft, 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2. So that's how it's going to go. There is far more detailed guidelines here that will go out to all of your presidents. But This is how we're going to be scheduling. And in the next version of this, we're going to talk about scheduling and where they line up and looking at data for the last 2 years. Jeff and John, oh, I'm sorry, Thunder. We're
Thunder
out.
and lightning.
We're out.